I'm going to interrupt you. I apologize for that, but good afternoon. We still have folks checking in, so I'm going to kind of gradually ask you to give us a little attention, and then I'm going to have some fun with you. This afternoon's orientation is being taped by the Tellico Village Network. So as you ask questions, please keep your language clean. Oh, we've got to make sure we're clean on our responses, right? In all seriousness, good afternoon. My name is Bob Elgin. I am with T-Bart. Somebody dubbed me president, and I don't know what that means, but I've come to welcome you, but I'm just going to welcome you, tell you a little bit about T-Bart, and then I'm going to go hide, because this guy by the name of Jim Riley is really the person you want to listen to. So what's T-Bart? T-Bart is a all-volunteer, nonprofit organization who has a few pieces of mission. And the one we're most well known for is if your boat breaks down out on the lake, you blow a fuse, you run out of gas, the battery dies, pick your reason, we'll come get you. Now, we do that 365 days a year from sunrise to sunset. And you're going, well, gee, what's wrong with night? Well, there are a couple things wrong with night. One is by Coast Guard regs, if we're operating a towboat that has a boat in tow, we need a lighting array that includes a yellow light. Okay, we can go buy a yellow light. That's not the issue. The issue is how many people on Tellico Lake will recognize that lighting array, know what it means, and not run into our tow line or the boat behind us. So that's the reason we rarely go out at night. But we do have a subset of the organization called Night and Special Support. You'll see it abbreviated as NSS periodically. These are folks who get some extra training, have significant experience on the lake and with T-Bart, and they do go out at night for certain special situations. But mostly what they're doing is working with governmental emergency services organizations, police, fire departments, et cetera, to do special things. So a couple of examples, about 4 years ago, an individual was swimming from the shore out to one of the islands and did not return. A couple of years ago, we had some fishermen just below the dam that got caught in the turbulence right at the base of the dam. Their fishing boat flipped, both of them went in the water, one of them came back up, the other one disappeared. So we help the folks go look in those situations. So we do that, that's a piece of it. Third thing we do, if your boat's sitting in your slip and you're trying to get it to a repair place, it's not functional or the weather is such or your health is such that it's not the right thing, contact us, and there's a handout that has a different way of contacting us for what we call courtesy tows, and we'll help you get your boat over to a launch ramp or wherever it needs to be, and we're happy to do that. And I'll come back to 1 second, if you're out on the lake and the battery dies, et cetera, call 911. And many of you may say, well, wait a minute, that's for real emergencies, and this isn't really an emergency. Well, we have an agreement with the emergency services organizations and their dispatch centers. They're okay with that call coming in, fully okay, and they will relay it to us. But the biggest key is whether you know it or not, on your cell phone, when you call 911, your cell phone will transmit a latitude and longitude from where you are. That helps us find you. Makes it a lot easier, because historically we would have to call you and say, well, where are you? And I've had actually people respond, I don't know. And I've said, well, look around and tell me what you see. Trees. That's exactly the response I received. That is absolutely it. And that can make it a little challenging to then go find them and get them to a safe place. So we do these lake orientations, and our objective out of these is simply to educate people who are new to Tellico Lake about this lake and some of the wonderful things that it has to offer and some of the hazards that are out there. So We do a number of different things that basically promote safety and boating on Tellico Lake. How do we do this? Well, as you can see around the room, we've got a number of folks that kick in and volunteer to help. We have about 120 folks who take turns being on call 365 days a year and are the ones who will come get you. We have another 30 or so folks who have been in that state and have decided for whatever reason, they just want to support us, but they don't want to go on duty anymore. So we're talking a total of about 150 folks. Now, do we still need more people? Yes, we do. Absolutely, we do. January, February, and March, we have 3 people on call so that if we take a boat out and somebody should accidentally fall in, we've still got 2 people on the boat to help them get back in the boat while the water is good and cold. In the summer, most of the days, we will actually have 2 crews on call, one upriver, one downriver, so that if you need us, we can get there quicker than if somebody was coming all the way from one dam headed clear to the other, which is a 35-mile hike. Most of our boats tend to run about 25 miles an hour, so you can do the math and figure out that's a long haul if we have to go get you from one end to the other. So we constantly need people. We have some sponsors who help us financially in significant ways. And you see the emblem on the screen for Yamaha and their Right Waters efforts. They have agreed to work with us. They will ensure that all of our towboats, and we have 3 towboats, one based here at the Yacht Club, one based in Rarity Bay in the Rock Point docks, and one based at Kahiti. So they're scattered up and down the lake intentionally. Yamaha will make sure that ultimately all of our towboats are powered by Yamaha outboards, and they're helping us in other ways as well, and we are extremely appreciative for what they're doing with us. Additionally, we have a number of boat repair places, boat sales places, and some other folks who have agreed to help us financially. And this is the list from last year. We don't fully have the list from this year yet. But if you're in the market for a boat, if you need maintenance and service, contact these folks, please, because they are extremely supportive of us. We have some gifts for you today, and most of you have already seen them. You've picked them up. If you didn't get one of these little stickers, there's some back there at that table. Grab one, stick it on the dash of your boat. Stick it, oh, they're back over here. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm getting all kinds of feedback from the peanut gallery, and I love it.
You need it. Oh, yeah.
I'll introduce Jim in a second. And it's just simply a reminder that if you're out on the lake and things go bump in the night, it is absolutely not only okay to call 911, it's absolutely in your benefit and favor to do so. At this point, I'm going to seriously introduce Jim Riley. Jim is our director of training, sits on the board, is a water skier. Ask him about skiing barefoot. Yeah, make sure that comes up. But I'm going to turn this thing over to him. I'm going to sit down and get out of the way because I know when I've been replaced by somebody who's far more competent and capable than I am. So, Jim Riley.
You said you get forever, right?
It's fun.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Bob is my boss. When I retired, I thought I'd only have one boss, the one at home. But now I have at least 2. And he said to get ready for duty today. Well, normally I put on a cap and I put on a life jacket. So when I got here, I thought, well, I'm not going to get around the water, but I have heard that you folks could be a rough crew, and I've heard I needed a lifeline. Didn't have a lifeline, so I thought a life jacket might work just as well. I'm wearing this with a little fun, but seriously, what I want to do before we even start the presentation is give you one piece of advice that I think all T-Barters would agree with. how many of you know what kind of a life jacket this is? Everybody know what this is? It's inflatable, automatic inflatable. It's what we wear on T-Bart. And what's unique about it is what we do is we put it on before we ever step on the dock. I know as I look at this crowd that I'm the only one that might be starting to lose my balance a little bit. But we also know 2 years ago that there was an individual who stepped off his boat, missed the dock, went in the water, and I've done that many times in my life over the years, but this gentleman never came back up. He didn't have a life jacket on. And we know for a fact that at least if he'd had a life jacket like this on, it would have exploded and brought him back to the surface, and he maybe would have survived. So as much as I make fun of being here with my life jacket on, I wanted to make a point that these are not the cheapest life jackets you'll buy, but they might be the best life insurance you'll buy as you spend your next few years on our lake. This hat, frankly, it's a new hat. I just hope you notice how nice it was. But we are taping this for a future audience on the Tellico Village Network. And our producer back there, Kevin, saw my hairdo and suggested that to keep the shine down, I should probably wear this. Now, as I look out there, some of you have the same hairdo. Do you have a cap? Because we are going to shoot the audience once in a while a little bit. Well, welcome. You've heard from Bob. Bob's certainly one of the best ambassadors for our organization, but I have a few announcements here I want to make. I want to make sure everyone has your handouts. I want to make sure that you would silence your phones or any other noisemaker. So wives, control your husband, if you will. I had a pastor once who said, whoever's phone goes off during the message, you're buying a round of coffee for everybody after church. I'm thinking I can adapt that, and I think we can have more fun with this because I'm going to make the rule, whoever's pager or phone goes off buys the first round down in the bar when we're done, and I will be the first in line. Restrooms are, I think if you're familiar with the yacht club, you know that we have some at the restaurant level and then all the way down. Fire exits, very important. Over here, a lot of people don't realize that's a fire exit, and right back here's a fire exit besides our main exit. It says here I should let you know when I'm planning to take a break. Unless I get awfully tired, I don't plan to take a break. So what I would encourage you, if you do need to get up and take a comfort break, please do so. We will just continue moving. There will be a little pause as we get about halfway through this. That might be a good time, but I don't really think we want to take a break. We want to move forward as quickly as we can. We have a number of people at the table. I'm not going to take time to introduce them, but make sure you stop at the Coast Guard table, over here at the T-Bart table, and if you need a map, over here at our map table. Okay, the handout. This is our handout. We will go through this. It is not a complete reprinting of the entire slide deck that we're going to look at today. You are going to see that a couple of the slides specifically about the Tellico TVA lake level and operating guides did not reproduce well. Our apologies for that, but hopefully the slide here will give you an idea, and more importantly, you'll have a way to get to it. I would say the last thing on the handout is the last page has all the contact information of the key people that you may hear us discuss in this presentation. And the last thing I would say is I want to make sure this is very comfortable for everybody and interactive. So if you have a question or a comment, please let me know during the presentation. I don't mind stopping, and I'd rather deal with it when it's on your mind. What I will do is do my best to repeat the question because for our audience on the Tellico Village Network. So let's get started. Our agenda is just this. It's lake overview and background information. We're going to give you a little history about this lake. This lake has a very unique history to it. I think every lake that's been built since probably the 30s or 40s has some history. Ours has some unique things that are very fascinating, and the more I know about it, the more I'm interested in it. We're going to just do a real review of safety and courtesy and some common sense advice that many of us have gained over the years. We're going to talk about the organizations that might make your boating experience even better. We're going to look at just a little bit of the navigation, rules of the road or rules of the river, and our facilities on our lake, our points of interest, and our hazards, just like Bob mentioned. I do have to make a few disclaimers. None of us know everything about this lake. We're going to do our best to give you an overview of the lake, and my hope is when you get done with this, you're going to say, I feel confident to go out and enjoy the lake. And I feel confident that we're going to enjoy it a little more than maybe before we stopped here this afternoon. We can't include all the safety items you need to know, and so we would recommend that you take either the About Boat Safety from the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary, an America's Boating Club's ABC class, or some other safety course. All T-Barters must take a safety course before we can even apply. Now, for those of us that have boated for something over 65 years, you wonder, why would I take another safety course? But what I learned when I took it for the first time in those 60 some odd years, I learned a lot. And so I would encourage you. Boat US offers one online that's free, but there's many other choices, and I would encourage everybody to do that. By the way, I always love doing this. How many of you this will be your first or your second year on Tellico Lake? Okay. How many of you, you're new to boating as you've gotten to Tellico Lake? Okay. About 30 to 40% of us at these presentations over the last 3 or 4 years that I know about are new to boating, and the rest of us, almost 80 to 90% of the rest of us, are new to it. I'm a 5-year member of the Tellico fan club. We moved here in 2018. I became a T-Barter in 2019 after literally a lifetime of boating. But I will give you a little secret. I've never boated on anything this nice because most of my boating was on the Illinois and Mississippi rivers. So we got to vacation in Arkansas and had some nice lakes there, but this was our dream come true. And we feel like we're in paradise almost every day. And not all Tellico Lake hazards are going to be mentioned. We may just not know about them yet. In fact, one of the hazards that we're talking about this year, we didn't talk about 2 years ago. So it's something that's has come to our attention. We're going to talk about Tellico Lake. I said that. So let's talk about it. It went on the books of the TVA in the 1930s. The dam started in 1967 and was finished in 1979. The dam was actually closed on November 29th, 1979. Well, that's a long time for any project because from the 30s until the 60s, really not much happened, but it was a dream specifically of the TVA president in the later half of that time. It runs from the Chilhowie Dam to Highway 321. You may already know that, but that's about 33 miles, and if you add the tributaries, it gets over 65 miles or so of different avenues and different areas you can explore. 373 miles of shoreline, over 15,000, almost 15,600 acres. So it's even bigger than Fort Loudon Lake. And I always, when I think about Fort Loudon Lake, I always thought it was larger, but it's actually about 1,000 acres smaller than our Tellico Lake. Tellico Lake was also, as best I can tell, the last major publicly funded, federally government-funded reservoir or lake built in the United States. And really what happened was the EPA and conservation pressures came to bear on building lakes and making artificial bodies of water. We do have a lot of large coves. It says they're 90 feet. I've never found a 90-foot spot in the lake. I found 75 to 80, but I'm sure there's a 90-foot spot. I'm more concerned with the under 3 feet places in the lake, and I want you to be aware of that too. It's interesting in that we're all from North America, right? At least our most recent experience. How do rivers usually flow in North America? Well, we're backwards here. Now, don't make a comment about Tennessee, folks, because we're all Tennesseans now. But we're flowing south to north here, which for many of us takes a little getting used to. We do have mile markers, and here we go. This is what caused so much of the interesting history about our lake. This is the snail darter. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce the legal name or the scientific name, but I want to be accurate in something, so I'm going to have to read, got to read if I can get my glasses on. I want to read a little something that talks about this. In August 12th of 1973, a zoologist by the name of David Eitner, who had already testified against the dam, the Tellico Dam, at the Environmental Defense Fund lawsuit. And he had spoken to many groups on the environmental issues of the lake. He was snorkeling at the Little Tennessee River, not too far from Coyote Springs as we know it now on the lake. About 7 miles upriver from the Tellico Dam, he miraculously, and some said maybe a little too miraculously, found or spotted something he had never seen as a zoologist, had never heard about, this little perch-like fish. And it was a creature that he'd never seen before. So he came up out of the water, he had apparently it in his hand, and someone standing next to him, and this is, I quote, "What you got, buddy?" And Eitner immediately and very enthusiastically replied, "Mister, this is the fish that's going to stop the Tellico Dam." And sure enough, later in 1973, the Endangered Species Act was passed, and the endangered species included our snail darter. It was halted at that point in 1973, although it was 75% completed. And it was then in 79 before it was ever actually finished, and it was finished through an act of Congress. According to some of what I've read, it also was done on one of those dark afternoons when not a lot was going on in Washington, but this got done. I'm happy it got done. Not everybody in our local community is. These are some of my favorites, our favorite books about Tellico Lake. They are available at our library. They're available on Amazon. I got mine at the Fort Loudon Dam Museum. If you're interested in reading history, there's a few other books, but to me, these give you the best overview. What are some key things here? We've already talked a lot about it. The TVA owns all property up to the 820 feet above sea level. Whether it's in someone's backyard or not, it is still owned by the TVA, and that individual that owns the home on the lake has access to it. Summer pools between 8:12 and 8:13, and during the summer, you'll see the lake move up and down 8 to 12 inches, well, never hardly 12, but 8 or 9 inches, and they do that to control mosquitoes. And I don't know about you, but compared to most lakes I've been on, we have very low mosquito population, so it works pretty well. Winter pool, though, drops to 807 to 809, and the 100-year flood is 816 to 823. Let's see, was it 2020 or February 19? One of those. We've had a couple of floods that got well over that 816 level and got pretty darn close. They were all winter floods, February and March. Now, the folks that I know that have been here all their lives said that was the highest it's ever been, but it's kind of like when we had a flood in Illinois. We had a new level at one year, and the next year we had a new level, and the next year we had another new level. Maybe that's what's going on here. I'm not sure. Dates that you want to remember. First thing I would say is make sure you get your taxes paid, because my neighbor who's been here 20 years says they will not raise the lake until April 15th when all the taxes get paid. So it says here April 1st, but he's tracked it, and he says April 15th is a better date. But in November, start watching. If you want to get your boat out, you want to get your boat out probably the first week or two of November, because they bring it back down. Winter pool is planned to be at December 1st. None of those numbers, dates are cast in stone, as you can imagine. This is a place that I have as an app on my phone, and I would encourage you to consider it. These are the historic and projected lake levels. It's a TVA site, and I'm sorry for the bad quality of the slide, but it shows 8 hours of history and 3 days of projection. So as you go to the lake, you can look and see where are we on water level, and you can judge. As we get done today, you'll understand why that's important, because then you can judge how much water is going to be under you in some of the more shallow areas. This is a terrible slide. I apologize. So I have to just tell you that this is the operating range that they also do. There are two lines. The first line is the 2023 for this year. It's current year. Where is the water? And then the other line, this yellow line, tells you where it was last year. And you can just probably barely see it. This is summer, and then we go back to December. So we are right here. I took this screenshot in January, so we are here. The thing I wanted to point out too is, look, it's only a 10-foot range, so that looks like a lot, but it's only 10 feet. And typically we're moving 5 feet, it's about all we're moving. This is where you get it. That information's on your contact sheet, so don't panic. But if you go to TVA.gov, River Lake Info, you'll get it. And there's an app that you can download that works very well, and I would encourage it. Let's talk a little bit about the quality of the water here. I've already suggested that it's probably a pretty nice lake, certainly compared to where I grew up boating. It is a much less, I guess I'd just say it's cleaner than a lot of the surrounding lakes because it isn't as active as many lakes. We don't have nearly the boat activity as many of the other lakes. We also have an annual cleanup by a very important organization. And we have 5 dumping stations on the lake, so we have ready access to people needing to clean out their tanks. Swimming is safe, I mean, everywhere, except, now, we have livestock that can get into some of the creeks and get into the lake. You can, I think the mafia said swim with the fishes, and if you go to Florida, you can swim with the dolphins. Well, we can swim with the cattle. Now, I don't recommend that. They're not a bad sort, but they just kind of make a mess. So you probably want to stay away from that. And they get some runoff. It runs off of some farms. So if back in some of those areas, you want to watch that. And the most important thing I would say about swimming is stay out of the marinas and commercial areas, primarily for electrical shock. Now, there's all kinds of activity and traffic and gas and pollution, but the most important thing is electrical shock. And I'm not going to go into that. You can look that up and see why that's an issue, but around docks and where there are generators running on boats, electrical shock, stray electrical current is a danger. And in a place I know well, Lake of the Ozarks, they have, at least they used to have, more than a few drownings based on being electrocuted each year. Fish are safe for consumption. Catfish, there's an advisory out on it. It just says that you shouldn't eat much, but the people that I've talked to around here, and I've done some research on it, nothing overly to be concerned with. I just don't think you want to eat catfish from the bottom of our lake every day for the rest of your life, and at 2 pounds each meal. So, but it is an issue. Here, we've got a number of people that pay attention to our lake and take good care of us. The Coast Guard. I think everybody knows who the Coast Guard is. They control all navigable U.S. waterways. They have ceded responsibility for our lake to the TVA, to the TWRA, the Tennessee Wildlife Resource Association, or agency, and our local police. They, though, still control the navigable channel. Now, in our lake, we are commercially navigable from 321, or for the bridge where the lake starts, all the way up to just before the railroad bridge at Von Noor. you'll see, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. But it's about 18 miles that it's commercially navigable, which means the Coast Guard is in charge of that for that navigation, except they've ceded that to TVA. Above that, it is not commercially navigable, so the Coast Guard is not involved at that point. The other thing is, and one of the organizations that really does a nice job for us here in our community is the Coast Guard Auxiliary. They aid the Coast Guard. They're not a ticketing organization, but they patrol and help, and we'll talk about some of the other things they do. Tennessee Valley Authority, as I've said, that's a federal agency that has now responsible for the recreational use of the lake and for maintaining it to prevent flooding. The primary purpose of our lake is commercial, shipping, flood control, and then power production, and then last is recreation. And so they prioritize it that way. TWRA is our Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. They're responsible, obviously, for the wildlife, restocking the lake, the quality of the water, and the enforcing the state laws. We talk about the Corps of Engineers, we're talking about lock and dams. So any lock or dam is managed and is responsible, and the Corps of Engineers is responsible. Our county sheriffs, you're going to see our Loudoun County friends and our Monroe County friends from time to time, and they obviously are also able to ticket. And then our favorite group is T-Bart, and I think Bob's already given you a good idea of what we do. On our lake, we have pretty darn good cell phone coverage. We get north, or south, I should say, past Von Orr, past the Fort Loudoun Dam, or not Fort Loudoun Dam, but the Fort Loudoun Fort. And it gets a little sketchy at times depending on what your carrier is. But I've been all over this lake, and there's only 2 or 3 places that I know I'm not going to get good service. So some people carry a VHF radio. I'm not going to go into it, but I think most people that are familiar know that 16 is the hailing channel, an emergency channel. And then if you do that, you jump over to another channel. I ended up investing in one of those. I'm not sure, that's up to you, but I think the odds are you'll probably never need the VHF radio if you have a good cell phone and you're using one of the carriers that does the best job down here. Lake activities. Okay, thank you, Bob. I missed that. So if you are going to lock through at Fort Loudoun, Bob makes a good point. Maybe that is a good investment. If you're planning to go downriver into Watts Bar Lake, having a VHF for the dam might make sense. Thank you. Sorry I missed that. Activities, all kinds of activities we've got going on here. Just a little bit of everything that has water. And how many of you know what noodling is? Would somebody tell me what you think noodling is? I mean, this is a clean show. This is PG, so. Oh, that's what, okay, did you hear that? That gentleman said catching catfish with your hand or feet, diving down in and pulling that out. Well, that's what I always thought. I grew up on a farm and my dad and neighbors did that, but that's not what we're talking about here. That's a plastic noodle. But the more I see that, every time I do this slide, I think, I've got to ask people, if besides me, next generation will never know what noodling really is. So, fishing, all kinds of fishing here. I'm told it's not the best, but for some reason, I live on the water and I see a lot of fishing boats and I see them come back. So there must be some good fishing. We have all of this bass, sauger, crappie, bluegills, catfish, muskie, northern pike, lobster, salmon. Oh, my wife told me I needed to get that out of there. But so, fishing licenses are required. So children over 13 need a license. Over 65, we can get a lifetime pass. When I got my pass. I think it was $50 for my lifetime, so they were betting I wasn't going to last long. I think I got my money's worth so far. And again, you can go to the TWRA website for that information. It's on your contact sheet. Here's one of the biggest issues that I think we have in front of us now. And I told you that I grew up on the Mississippi and Illinois River, and my wife and I, our last home, we lived on a small tributary to the Illinois River, and I water skied with these suckers. And to my humble opinion, there is nothing that will devastate our lake more than if we allow these in. So my call to action, my urge for action, and this is a political statement as clear as I can make it, is please get a hold of the TWRA, the TVA, your state and federal representatives, and raise Cain, because if they get in our lake, we can't stop them. This picture could have been taken outside our house in Illinois. We had a dock on the water, and more than once, that's exactly what we saw. I've been hit by those things skiing, and I've had them in my boat. You do not underestimate the devastation they'll do to our lake. It'll change everything, and I'm told they're already in Kentucky Lake and Lake Barkley, which at one point were beautiful lakes, and I'm told that the fishing is gone and the recreation is diminished quite a bit. So I'm off my soapbox. Thank you. Here's one of the most favorite things about our lake is the East Lakeshore Trail. It's about 31 miles of volunteer-supported trails, lakeshore trails. And because it's open to the public, there's not going to be any development on it. The organization we call Water does that and are always looking for folks to help with that. It's got 3 boat landings. There's trailheads. It's a beautiful place. If you enjoy our wildlife and you enjoy getting out, that's a great place to see it. And speaking of wildlife, here's some of the wildlife we have. I'm not going to speak to each one of these, but probably the one question I get the most is right here. We do have some copperhead and we do have some rattlesnake in the immediate area. We have northern water snake and these other snakes that are non-venomous. And according to TWRA and other sources, there are no water moccasins in our lake. I just hope the water moccasins got that message. But the one I'm most concerned about is this right here. The raft-up party animal, which again, I know it's not unique here, but it seems to have taken on a whole new life since I've moved here and watched how crazy that can get. So let's talk a little bit about what goes on in safe boating. Right there, I think you see boats and you see water and you see people. Here we've got a great picture. Look how calm that is. We got boats and we got water. So what do you suppose causes the safety issues? Let's take a moment and learn how to launch a jet ski. You know, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I have seen that same with a boat trailer and a boat on it, and I was almost victim to one. I jumped out one day, launching my boat by myself, didn't hit park. So I got lucky. I was able to jump back in, but it was close. So it can happen to anybody. How about this? There has got to be a better way to meet people. I'm thinking new villagers, meet at the pub, go to the yacht club, something. And I tried to tell you there were no brakes on this boat. How about over here? What's a little beer among friends? That's a glass plastic boat, people. That looks like fun now, doesn't it? Especially if we got a case of beer in there. Now, can you just imagine, and I won't say who was driving, but husband and wife, honey, I think we go left. No, I'm sure we go right. No left. Well, they didn't get to make that decision, so. Operator requirements, under 12, you have to have an adult who can take immediate control. So you could have grandkids on your lap as long as you're in a position they can drive. But if, obviously, there's an exception if it's a small boat. Anyone born after January 1st of 1989 has to have a completion of a TWRA approved boater education course. Now, reciprocity works, so if you've got relatives, friends who fall into that age group and they have a safety certificate or boater education course from another state, you'll be fine. But they'll need to have it with them legally. Now, that's not unusual most everywhere in the United States now, most every place I know about. Life vests, we've already talked a lot about that, but for those of you that might have grandchildren, if they were 13 years of age or under 13, they must have a life vest on when the boat's moving. It must be appropriate for their size and weight. It must be Coast Guard approved. It must be readily accessible. Let me ask you a quick pop quiz, first one of the day. You just bought a brand new boat. They gave you life jacket, maybe they didn't give them to you, but you bought life jackets, and they came in a nice plastic bag. You throw them under the seat because you didn't want them to get dirty. You get stopped. The officer says, "Let me see your life jackets." How many life jackets that are approved do you have? Yeah, if they're still in a plastic bag, they are not going to be approved. The other thing that is very common, and I think it's a good idea, let's say this gentleman is sitting in the back half asleep. They will wake him up and take his beer out of his hand and then say, "Where's your life jacket?" And if he can't get up and find it pretty quickly, that could also cost. So these sound draconian, but they're really not, because they're for our own safety. So just a couple of insights. One of the things that I want to point out, and we'll talk about a little more, is that T-Bart has a loaner program for life vests, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. The other thing is it's a federal law that all vessels under 26 feet, the operator must be attached to what we used to call a dead man switch, but it's actually to avoid a dead man switch. So it's a safety switch. TWRA website is the best place to go because we are still wondering if they're going to enforce it here in Tennessee or not. We in T-Bart have adopted it as a safety rule that we think is well worth it for everybody, especially if you're in a stand-up position or anything like that. Here's our life vests. We have them at every major dock area on the lake that we know about. I'm not going to list all those, but if you are in any of these areas, they're either going to be in an outdoor box or they're going to be in one of the restrooms, one of the nice Tellico Village restrooms. One of the things that most of us have to learn, sometimes the hard way, wake control. Every one of us as boaters are responsible for whatever our wake does to somebody else or some other property. So, be aware of your boat's wake, learn what your boat's wake is all about. I have a boat that at 28 miles and above, there's almost no wake at all. At 17 or 16 or 15, it's designed to throw one heck of a wake for trick skiing. So, I have to know that when I need to slow down, if I slow down in that 15 or 16 mile an hour, I'm throwing a bigger wake than if I went 36 mile an hour. Your boat's going to react differently, but all boats, when they're not on plane, throw a pretty good wake. Watch out for boats at rest, like a fishing boat, boats at docks, refueling docks, people in the water, vessels under tow. Do I hear an amen, T-Barters? Yeah. Watch us. If we're having somebody under tow, we need you to slow down, give us a wide berth, and reduce your wake if you can. Slow down to reduce your wake, but don't plow. And remember, a no wake buoy basically is an idle speed buoy. And even some boats will give you a little wake then. Last year, July 1st, we got a new law that restricted wakeboarding and wake surfing. Anything that's less than 400 feet wide, you cannot wake surf or wakeboard in. Again, huge wakes these things throw out. They're not permitted within 200 feet of shoreline or a dock or a pier or any other structure located on or in the water. And then wakeboarders and wake surfers must wear a Coast Guard approved life vest. And that's not been always the case. It's always been law, but it hasn't always been done. No use to talk about boating under the influence, but I do want to remind you that unseen things like tow lines and swimmers, skis, wakeboards, or tubes, all of that indicates there's probably some person around in the water somewhere. Overloading, you've all got a placard on your boat, I'm sure. Maybe not if you're a real large boat, but most of us have a placard that tells us what the actual loading specs are. Try to stay close to that. I mean, they're over-engineered a little bit, but don't push that. Aha! I want to take a drink of water because this is a little bit of a pet peeve for some of us. Our boats are increasingly coming with docking lights that look a whole lot like headlights. They are not headlights. They're made for approaching the dock when you're within 50 to 100 feet of your dock, not out in the open water. If you ever meet one of these after dark, whatever night vision you have going for you is gone for a few moments. It's illegal, and I don't know that we have enough people out there to enforce it, but just out of courtesy to your fellow boaters, do not use your dock lights until you get to the dock. Safety. We keep talking about safety. Don't you get tired of all this? For those of you that are new, don't cheap on the battery. Get a good marine battery. Make sure it's a good quality. Our most frequent tow is typically dead batteries. Second is mechanical, and gas is third. And on the gas, I will just tell you there's not a boat been made yet that has an accurate gas gauge. I don't know how many times we pick somebody up and they say, it says I got a quarter tank. It says I got a half a tank. Here's a rule from a guy that's been boating all my life. Fill it up before you go out and then learn how much it uses. And if I've always said there's not a gas pump I should pass, but that's a little over the top. Keep the battery charged. Watch your accessories. Most of those tows that I told you we pick up are between 4 and 6 o'clock at night. Guess what's been going on all day? A little bit of radio, or not radio, see, date me. A little music playing, and then we get to be in business. That's what keeps us in business. Lines, get the good ones. Learn how to do this simple cleat tie right here on every time you tie off on a cleat. And try to avoid this. Rules of the road. If you didn't get one of these, I think most of you did. If you didn't get one of these this is the current Tennessee Rules of the Road handbook for boating. The safety courses, I think I've already promoted, but if you watch every fall and early winter, you'll see the Coast Guard and the American Boating Club publishing their list of activities. I don't know what's left yet this year, but I know they are excellent, and I've never had anybody attend that didn't think they were great. The other thing you might want to consider, especially first couple years here, but I do it every year, is get a free safety check by the Coast Guard or the Boating Club. It's voluntary. It's not law enforcement. All they're going to do is walk you through the safety, give you a checklist of anything they find that may be a danger or a concern. And then when you're all done, and if you pass, you're going to get a little sticker, and you put that sticker on the left side of your boat, and it makes for a very happy boating season. Here are some things, some flags you might see. I think most of us would probably recognize that as the Coast Guard, America's Boating Club here. Both of these are on boats that are owned by the members, and they're actually on duty at that time. A diver down flag is very common. Not so much on this lake, but you'll see it quite often. Does anybody know what this is? How many of you know this? What this is? It's a skier down water, and it's not a law here, but I'm starting to see more people using these. So if you see one of these, look for somebody in the water, because it is many states require it. And as soon as your skier drops off, you're supposed to be waving this. like I say, it's not required, but I'm starting to see it. It's just one more thing to look for. Now, here's the flag I want you to really pay attention to. What's this mean? Huh? I need help. I'm airing my towel. Yes, I'm airing my towel out. That's help. That's the universal, that and this are the universal signs for help. Although T-Bart's available, we are asked to render assistance if we can, pull over. And if nothing else, make sure everybody's okay and that you can't help, and then give them T-Bart's 911 call. We have a number of local organizations that are going to help us. Let's walk through those pretty quickly. The Tellico Cruising Club is based here in the local area. They meet at the Yacht Club on a regular basis. They and the contact information is on your last page. The Rarity Bay Yacht Club is open to Rarity Bay members and residents only. We have the Tellico Village Fishing Club, and I believe I'm right, Jeff, don't they have a pretty significant effort against the Asian carp? Okay, so they may be somebody you want to get a hold of and see what they're recommending, what they're up to, but obviously they are working against that as hard as, or to fight it as much as anybody. My favorite group, I just love the name, Soggy Bottom Kayak Club. Maybe any of you members? Okay, kayakers. They have a lot of fun and they get a lot of good exercise. America's Boating Club, we've mentioned them before. This is another national group. It is a very structured, they build camaraderie. Again, they meet on a regular basis, and they are always looking for new members. Coast Guard Auxiliary, this is a uniform group. We've talked about them. I don't think I'll go any farther, but they do meet here on a regular basis, fourth Wednesday of each month. Where are you meeting now that your Tenaci's gone? First Tuesday. Okay, they're now meeting first Tuesday at Little Italy. If you get a hold of the contact on the back page, they will get you that figured out. And this is probably one of my favorite organizations because they are really working to keep our lake clean and pristine. And there's a lot of things you can do for them, but they do. We personally make a donation every year. I don't know that I've done much volunteer work, but I certainly support what they do. They do the shore cleanup. They maintain the East Lakeshore Trail System. They do water quality assessments, so they're working with other agencies to test the water. And T-Bart. Do you want to hear more about T-Bart, or are you okay with that for now? Okay. Let's talk a little bit about Tellico Lake navigation. Right in the next few minutes, we're going to get to the point where that map may be handy to have out, but for now, I think we'll be okay. This is the map. This is the map that we're going to use, and we will start on one end of our lake, and we'll walk, or we'll not walk, but we'll do a journey through the lake. So we have these here. If you didn't get one, there's no pressure to get one. We do sell them at our cost. They're available at other stores around the area. The Little Tennessee River, as we've said, runs from south to north. And the rule of boating is if you're returning from the sea, you would be going south on this lake. And that's going to mean something when I do this. Red right returning. So the idea, the old saying is, if you're returning from the sea, which would be going south on our lake, or from Fort Loudon to the Chilhowie Dam, we would want the red buoys on our right, the green buoys on our left. You will be in a channel that should be a safe place to boat. And I say should be because things change, but I would go say 99.9% of the time you're going to be fine in that channel. Going upriver, you would have, going upriver, you would have this red, and it's called a nun, on your right side, and you'd have this can, this green can on the left side. Or if there was a day marker on the shoreline, it would be a triangle to mimic the nun look, and or a flat green. And then when you turn around and come from Chilhowie Dam, it's just the opposite. These are actual pictures of some of our cans and our nuns. These have been taken a little while ago because some of them don't look this good anymore, but they still have the same shape. And these are the main ones in the main channel of the navigable portion of our lake. When you start seeing these, you are no longer in the navigable, commercially navigable part of our lake. These are placed by the TWRA, whereas these are, let's see, are these Coast Guard or Corps of Engineers? Corps of Engineers. These are Corps of Engineers placed. Yeah. These are day markers. Again, they're on the shoreline. They may be right up against the shore. They might be a little bit off of there. They're in shallow spots typically. I would have to say a lot of our day markers are not around much anymore, and they're not hard. They're very hard to see. Buoys and day markers, special buoys. We've already talked a lot about the no wake. Basically, a control buoy with the circle is a speed limit, is a no fishing, no wake area. A triangle or a diamond is a hazard. These are both caution, and they are just telling you different things about what's going to happen. Let's talk a little bit about our lake facilities, which we have many. I believe this is in the handouts. And this is a pretty handy document, in my opinion. We all adopt Fort Loudon Marina as our kind of our most downriver portion, so we all want to make sure we know about Calhoun's and how to get there. We have, and as you know, they have a restaurant. It's a full-service marina. Tellico Marina at Von Noor is the other full-service marina. And then we have these other marinas. We have gas at Fort Loudon, Wind River, Tellico, Yacht Club, Sequoia Landing, and Tellico Marina. That's where you can get gas. In the wintertime, after it's a little harder to get gas at any of these places except where they are automatic or where they are self-serve. Docks and ramps down at near the 321 bridge. We have the Tellico Dam facility, which has restrooms, picnic, a very nice area, large area. As we know, yes. Okay, the question is on the gas, which ones are auto? And I want somebody to correct me if I'm wrong. As far as I know today, it's Wind River and Yacht Club. Now, this is I don't know if it's inside information or not, but I've been told that they're going to put in a self-service pump at Sequoia sometime this summer that will be available after they close the dock in the evening. But that's not in there yet. Other questions? Good, thank you. We get up into the Tellico River, and that's Notchie Creek, the Notchie Creek Campground and Ball Play Creek, and then the Notchie Creek. Let me back up, man. Here's Razor's Landing in Notchie Creek. For those of us on that end of the lake, that's probably one of the most popular launch sites. These two are at the far end of the lake up near the dam. And this last one, probably most of us really don't want to try to get to. We'll talk about it later. I'm not going to go through all the details of this, but there's quite a few places to visit. In my opinion, a couple of the most interesting places, well, the most interesting place is the Fort Loudoun State Historical Park and the Sequoia Birthplace Museum are both places you want to get on your list sometime. Both of them you can get to by water. We'll talk about that later. You can get to them by land or by water. These two memorials can only be accessed by car, and we'll talk about those a little later in the presentation. Now we're going to talk about points of interest and points of hazard, and we're going to do a journey up the lake. So we're going to start up here at Lenoir City, and we're going to work our way and head up the Tellico River here, and then we're going to come back and head up the Little Tennessee and get to that point. So you should have, I'm going to ask you to get to your first slides or your first handout that's got a slide on the right side and a lot of comments on the left side, and see if you can find Fort Loudoun Marina, because that's where we're going to start. Questions? It's right here, right off the map. Sometimes maps just don't work the best, but it's right here, and we'll show you a picture of it in just a minute. Tellico Lake, mile 0 is right here. It starts right there at the 321. It is the rec area I talked about before. The dam where the snail darters, roam, is right here. And Mizell Bluff we'll talk about. That's where the cliff diving and bluff driving goes on. And I'm looking around saying, yeah, I'll bet some of you folks have done that already. And Wind River Marina is here. Poplar Springs Boat Ramp is right over here. And then behind Poplar Springs is what's called, right here, is the Ski Jump Cove. And it's called Ski Jump Cove because at one point there was a ski jump there, and there's still a slalom course there. And I don't know if you know, but slalom course is 6 buoys, and you go back and forth between those. And there's there's a ski course that's maintained by some folks over there. Let's look a little bit at the hazards. On your map, to the left side of the lake, and this is 444 here, so it's not too far from the highway. There's an area called 5 buoys, and it's not far from the shoreline, but there are 5 buoys, or there used to be 5 buoys there. I haven't been there this year yet, but last year there were only 4. So, we're still calling it 5 buoys. And it is very shallow in the wintertime, and it's marked with buoys. You want to watch for those buoys, and you want to try to miss that area. There is a shortcut here between this island here and right through here. That's one of the few shortcuts I haven't tried, but I know at Summer Pool it's generally safe, but there are no buoys, so you're taking yourself, you're risking, because it is not a channel marked area. So if you pass through there, I would recommend, unless you really understand it well, just go ahead and go around the bend. This right here is called Jackson Bend. And I want you to remember Jackson Bend, because in a little while I'm going to confuse you and say that's Jackson Bend Island later on, but this is Jackson Bend. And again, it's shallow and close to it. So as you come around the corner, stay close to the buoys. In the summertime, you can get outside of those buoys and generally be okay. In the wintertime, don't even think about it. And we're still in winter water, by the way. And it's lower than I've seen it since I've been here, and it's lower than a lot of people that have been here longer than me have seen it. Here at Coyote Shores, just before you get into Ski Jump Cove, is another area of outcropping of rocks. And it is marked, but it's not marked real well. And you want to see it as close to shore and just pay attention to it. This is the overhead view of Fort Loudoun Marina. If you haven't been there yet, you would be coming past the dam, and you would come around this outside dock, come around here, and work your way into these docks here for Calhouns. That's the most important thing. You can tell by looking at me, I like my barbecue. They also have a gas dock, and then this is their full-service marine back here for repairs. But most everybody I know really want to be told how to get in here. Now, if you're new at boating, let me give you a couple other thoughts. One good investment is a good set of fenders and appropriate ropes to go with those fenders, and maybe some clips to clip those on your rails or whatever type of boat you have. I grew up teaching my two daughters, and then we taught our grandsons the same thing, that flesh heals, fiberglass does not. And if you know what that means, it means sacrifice your body part, not the boat. And so whether you have an aluminum boat or a fiberglass boat, a set of good fenders, and don't skimp, there's all kinds of gimmicks, but just get good ones, learn how to use them, and it will save you a lot of grief, and it'll keep the pride of ownership of your boat a little better for a little longer. And these are not fiberglass friendly docks. Very few docks on our lake are fiberglass friendly, and what happens is they just deteriorate and they don't get repaired. And the next thing you know, instead of having a rubber strip, you've got a metal piece or a nail sticking out. So just get used to that and boat accordingly. That's five buoys with artificial buoys put in, of course, so you folks could see it. But if you look real closely right there in the wintertime, that's completely out of the water. There it is in the summertime. There it is in the wintertime. And that's less than 5 feet drop. So it's only 2 or 3 feet below the water. Mizell Bluff. It is as you're coming up from the dam, it's to the left. As you don't want to get to, if you get to Wind River, you've gone too far. It's to the left as you're headed towards Wind River. It is where the young'uns all seem to congregate and jump in the water and have a good time. And for those of you that are interested in, I'm sure if you get over there some afternoon, there'll be somebody young that will show you how to do it. So there's a lot of jumping that goes on there. Coyote Shores, I told you about the outcropping near the shoreline there. That's what it looks like. For the life of me, as I get done with this presentation, every time I do it, I ask myself, why didn't they being TVA, just take a bulldozer and shave some of this stuff down 5 or 6 more feet at certain spots? I think for, 40 years it took them to get this thing built. Surely they could have figured out how to do that, but that's not the way they thought. All right, let's go on upriver just a little bit. So we're moving upriver, and we are headed towards the yacht club. We're headed up towards the towards the middle of the lake. On the left side or the port side, as we are going up, we are looking at one of the most popular raft-off, where those raft-off wild party animals come, right here under what's called Powerline Cove. Anybody know why it's called Powerline Cove? Bob, I thought you said this group wasn't that sharp, but I think they're doing okay. We then have what used to be Tenasseee, as we know, but it also has docks there on the left side, and we know there's silos at the open out there, and there are more jumping. We have a trail access then for the East Lakeshore Trail. There are 2 back here in Powerline Cove, and then there's one right here along the main channel. Very nice places. They're pretty decent docks, actually, or at least they were the last time I checked. And with some bumpers or fenders, you could leave your boat there and hike for a little ways. This is Tugaloo near the yacht club, Tugaloo Pavilion and Beach. Here is the yacht club, right here where we are. And then here's what's called Sinking Creek. And the reason we mention it is because you can get back in here and have some quiet, peaceful floats. Just sit and enjoy life. Some hazards. The main hazard in Powerline Cove is on busy days, and it's not a hazard that's natural. Well, I guess we're natural, but it's not a hazard that's part of the lake. It's all of us being there. Just it gets so busy that we would ask you to use no wake in there if you get in there and there's a lot of boats, and there is a lot of times where it's very busy with boats, and everybody's having a good time. That's why we moved here. At the very point, this is the yacht club where we are now, at the very point as you're leaving the yacht club, to your right as you're leaving to go upriver, it's pretty shallow right at the end. So over my shoulder, for those of us here at the yacht club, over my shoulder on the far side, it gets shallow right at the point. Just a basic rule of boating is when you're leaving a cove, stay in the middle typically, unless the buoys tell you otherwise. And get to the middle and then make your turn. Don't do one of these, cut the corners. It's just cutting corners you'll be cutting a prop possibly. So, and then Sinking Creek, the only reason we list it is it's got a blind curve, and very much similar to here. If you go screaming through here at speed, you're liable to meet somebody the way you don't want to meet somebody in that turn. Overhead view of the Tanasi Basin. This is the courtesy dock. It's very shallow, even though it says you can dock a boat here up against the shore. It's very shallow there. So this is the courtesy dock right here. Obviously, there's no activity there now. Those are the silos, and I've got a better picture of those. Look at that jumping. Again, for those of you that are ready, that should start in April or May. And you could probably go down there any weekday afternoon or weekend afternoon and jump right in the fray. Have some fun. There's one of the boat landings back in Powerline Coves. This is the yacht club. We're right there. And right in here is that shallow spot. So if we looked out there today, that would all be showing brown and mud. Let's move on up towards Lauderdale Cove Campground. So we are moving upriver. So which side of our boat should we have our buoys on? What color should be on our right side? I'll ask it that way. Red. Oh, you guys were listening. Good job. Lauderdale Cove Campground is a very nice full-service campground right in here. There are no wake buoys in front of all of their docks, so this is a nice area that you can get back in there and be nice and calm there. And back in this, I want to make sure, right in here is also another raft-off area that a lot of people like to hang out in. This is what we call Clear Creek Ramp. This is on Clear Creek, which you can go under 444, and there's some nice homes and some nice area back in there. This is called Blue Heron Island right here to pretty much, well, it's near Clear Creek, and it is obviously called Blue Heron Island for a reason. And then we have Jackson Bend Island right in here. I'm trying to, right in here. The shortcut. Most all of us are familiar with this if we've boated here very long at all. There is a shortcut through here. It's perfectly safe in summer, and I would say it's generally safe in winter, but if it was me, I would go around the island. I have not seen it yet this year, but there's been a rope swing here, again, for those of us that are adventurous. This old pontoon picnic island is no longer in use, but years ago, I'm told back, maybe 10, 15 years ago, there were a group of people that maintained this island, kept it clean and mowed, and went there and had picnics. So it's got its name. Rarity Bay is right here, and then this is Foothills Mall right here. Now, Jackson Bend Island, I mentioned, is here. This is Jackson Bend Island, and that's compared, though, to Jackson Bend, which was on the downriver side where we first got started, near Wind River. This is an overhead shot. That's Jackson Bend Island. This is what we call the shortcut, and this is what the buoys generally look like. So going upriver, we would keep this green to our left, we'd swing out of here and keep these to our right, and in that way. Let's move on up to one of the more interesting parts of our lake, where when the lake was built, one of the things that was unique about this lake's acquisition, or the property acquisition and the construction and the vision for this lake, was whereas before TVA had bought basically the only land they needed for the lake and then the flood control. All the other land was left in private hands. In order to justify this lake, it was determined that and this is part of the controversy and part of the anger that created so much local anger, is they decided to buy 35,000 acres instead of 15,000 that they needed. And the 35,000 was going to be then redeveloped into recreation, residential, and commercial. And that was going to be the appreciated value of that land being resold, was going to help justify to the federal agency and to the federal government, Congress, that this lake needed to be built. Well, we are sitting in one of those residential developments that was envisioned. And this then is probably the most obvious part of the industrial and commercial development that was envisioned right here. We have Mastercraft, we have Sea Ray, we have Yamaha, and we have another boat company that's not on here, but it's called Hydro Sports Custom Boats. And they're the big boats that you may see out on the water, the big center console, 4, 5, 6 outboards. I mean, they're huge. So, plus many supporting industries and many other industries all here and all active. Mastercraft tests every one of their boats. They operate 4 days a week. They test every one of their boats on the water, every boat. Yamaha tests frequently, and Sea Ray tests frequently, and then Hydrosport. So it's kind of fun, at least once or twice, to go and sit close to there and watch them test, because they put these boats through all kinds of stress tests, and then they pull them back in, clean them up, and send them out to the owners. Just a little aside, Tennessee's become a boat building capital of the country, and of the boats that are considered to be tow boats, those that are designed specifically to pull skiers, wake surfers, or wakeboarders. A couple of years ago, 80% of all those boats were built right here in our area. We have another company on Watts Bar Lake, and we have 2 companies over in Maryville, all building towboats besides Mastercraft. Interesting that would happen here, and you don't see that much activity. Under the water, right here is what's called Rose Island, and it's long. I want to just double check something here. It's long, no longer in use, but it was a hunter-gatherer area as far back as 6,000 BC. The excavations have found where it was active as a hunting and a gathering area for our Native Americans back that far. And it was before the lake was actually formed. There were some farming and some activity on it, but it's called Rose Island, and it's underwater. It was the largest island in the Little Tellico River system, and one of the larger islands in the entire Tennessee River system. We're going to move on up here, and this is the railroad bridge near Von Noor. This is Harbortown Marine. It is more of I call it more of a commercial marine than a recreational marine, but they do have an 80-ton unit that can lift large boats. And then way back here, we're going to talk about it, is the Von Noor Rec area, and it's on Island Creek. Now, there's a few hazards in this area. The first I'm going to talk about is right here at the opening of Island Creek. And what we have is there's an island that you can see, and then there's an island, if we're going upriver, you see the island. If you find Mastercraft, you find Sea Ray, and then you see this island in front of you, and to the left of that island you can see is an island you can't see. And that's the one you want to be concerned about, because it's not at all well marked. It is, if you find it and you know how to use it, it's sandy, and I'm told some people go there and beach and, hang, you can walk around in a little bit of water, and it's okay, but you need to know where it is, because you don't want to find it unless you're looking for it. You don't want to find it accidentally. Use caution in the entrance to Island Creek, and it's all in through here. And Island Creek, as you move back into Island Creek, it's well marked, but it gets pretty zigzaggy. Is that a technical enough term for everybody? It gets kind of back and forth back in here, but you can get to the Von Orr rec area, and it gets real tight, but it's okay. This is the area that I alluded to that we have not talked about up until the last 2 years. And this is between the silo, there's two bridges in Von Orr. There's a railroad bridge, and then there's 421 bridge. Again, we're going upriver, so to your left or to the port side, there is what looks like a really nice cove, and it is a pretty cove. But the problem is it's got an old railroad siding or railroad bed that runs through it, and a bunch of farmstead foundations. And those farmstead foundations are still there. And you don't see them in the summertime, but you could feel them. This is the island that you can see. So not Yamaha, but Mastercraft and Sea Ray are right here. This is the curve in the lake. Yamaha's back in here. This is Island Creek down through here. So this then is the submerged island. You can just barely see it there, but I hate to give you too much, but it's something like that. So you can enter the creek here, and you can enter the creek here or here, but you want to watch this. Let me show you. That's summer pool. That's not winter pool, that's summer pool. Okay, and then there's the last major buoy, so that's the end of the commercial navigation on Tellico Lake. And as you can see, that's on this side of the bridge, of the railroad bridge. Now, there's the hazards east of the canal between the bridges. So this is the old railroad bed that at winter pool, it looks like this. Summer pool, you never know it was there. That is some foundations, and if you go by it now with the lake as low as it is now, they both are very, very prominent. And there is a silo, and I say just don't go to the east or as you're going upriver to the left side of the silo. Just stay in the channel between the bridges and you'll be just fine. But it's awful tempting because it's such a pretty big big part of blue water. Now, one of the most busy places in the entire lake is right here, only because we're catching traffic from one, two, three different directions. And this is Von Orr. So we've got ourselves, everybody in Von Orr, we're about 19, 20 miles up. And we are now looking at, this is Tellico Marina on 9 Mile Creek, which is to the left side of our channel. We are looking at the Sequoia Landing Resort and Marina right here on the Tellico River. To the right side as we're coming upriver. This is the beginning of Tellico River. We also now have a Tellico blockhouse we'll talk about in just a minute. We have the Fort Loudon Courtesy Dock and the Fort Loudon State Historical Park. And then down here we have the other large, we have three what I consider to be full-service campgrounds. The second one on the main channel is called Tokwa. And then out here is a historic area called the Ice House Bottoms. And this is one of those areas that, just so I'm historically correct, I'm going to look at my notes, so bear with me. You know, probably five years ago, 10 years ago, I probably could have memorized all this, but, you know, I'm not even sure where I'm supposed to go home tonight. So let's talk about the Fort Loudon State Historical Park. It was built, the original Fort Loudon was originally built in 1756 during the French and Indian War. The idea was to get the Native Americans, the Indians, and the South Carolinas to work together and work against the French. It worked for a while, but in 1760, the Cherokees captured the fort. They got a little tired of the partnership, I guess. They captured the fort and then burned it down. What we look at now is a reconstruction on 17 foot of fill to get it above Summer Pool. It was a very significant part of that era of the history. Immediately across from it is the blockhouse, the Tellico blockhouse, and it's at the entrance to the Tellico Marina. So it's right there, and all you see there are foundations, and there's a little structure they've just put up last year. A lot of people get it confused. That is not part, nor was it at the same time as the fort. This was done in 1794, and it existed through 1807. And what it was a trading post and a place where all people with European backgrounds had to get a permit to go further into Cherokee country. In other words, they wanted to control the influx of Europeans into that area. Now, the ice house bottoms, I apologize, too many things going on here. The outhouse, easy for me, right? The ice house bottoms is underwater, and this is another historic site that was unearthed during the archaeological work prior to the dam. It goes back, it was a semi-permanent hunting camp all the way back to 7500 BC. It is probably the oldest, if not one of the, it's maybe the oldest known inhabited areas in the state of Tennessee, and it's underwater now. It gets fairly shallow in places there, but in the summertime, unless you have a very, very deep bottom boat, deep draft boat, you'll be fine. So that area has a lot of history, and it is interesting and relatively easy to get to because there is a boat dock at the Fort Loudon State Park. And it's a pretty good boat dock, really. It's one of those that's, I would almost rate it fiberglass friendly. So dangers and their hazards, I would say, is really, again, it goes back to traffic. This is a pretty sharp curve right here. And if you come through there with speed, it's relatively narrow. And if you come at speed, you're liable to, again, meet somebody you hadn't planned on meeting. So we would just caution, you don't have to go no wake, but I would just say use caution and keep your eyes open from pretty much here all the way through to here, and you're back into open water. And then the shallow area here around the historical site and all, just pay attention to it. So this is the overhead view of this whole area. This is the curve I was telling you about right here. That again, people see you're blind here and then you're blind here. So you want to watch this. This is the beginning of the Tellico River. This is the bridge that goes nowhere. Have you seen that yet? Anybody seen that yet? Old bridge. They just knocked down the centerpiece and left a ramp right there. So there's a bridge that goes nowhere. This is the Sequoia Marina Resort area. This is Lake House Grill right here and a gas pump. And these are some of the transient or guest docks right here, and these are the cabins. I'm just going to jump over here. This is Tellico Marina, the other full-service marina that's on our lake. Very good marina. It has a restaurant. Last year it was called Rick's Dockside. Rick is retired. The folks that used to run this are going over here to run this, and we have new owners here. And that's all I can tell you. But we'll know in a couple of months, we'll know how good the food is. What else can I tell you about this area? This is the blockhouse. There's a little small access dock here. And on this is the fort. This is the museum. And right in here is the dock, and again, it's a very good dock. It's also got some good kayak launches there too. It's a nice facility. The whole facility there is really nice. Yeah, question. Okay. Okay, the question is, and I think it's at what we used to call Rick's Dockside at Tellico Marina. Are there courtesy docks? Are there transient docks, guest docks? The answer is yes. There is, and let me see if I can point this out. And I'm sorry for the folks at home watching this because this isn't going to show up. But right here is the gas dock. Right here is the restaurant. And these perpendicular slips are all guest slips. So the dock, the gas dock is a single finger sticking out, and you fill gas on either side of that, but then you have to vacate it. Then you can park closer to the dock, closer to the restaurant. Does that make sense? Now, there's not a lot of room, and sometimes you dock on either side, but you know, it's one of those things, you just kind of do the best you can if you're hungry enough. Yes, back there. The question is Christensen Yacht Company still coming our direction? I have no idea. I have read everything I can read on that, and the last time they said we're coming for sure, that was 3 years ago. So I have no idea. What he's referring to, and I didn't point it out, but in that same area directly to the east of where not Yamaha, but Mastercraft and Sea Ray are, is a huge building, which was originally, and I'm losing my dates now, but I want to say 06, 07, it was built, and Christensen Yacht Company out of the Northwest, I want to say maybe Portland, we're going to move their entire yacht building operation here. Now, they were building yachts that are in the 100-foot size, and so these were something like we weren't going to probably use. Many of us are going to use, but they were going to move them here, build here. The 08, 09 hit, and obviously they changed their mind. And then a few years ago, literally, I want to say it's 2 or 3 years ago, there was another big press release that said that they're coming again. But I haven't seen anything happen. So, and that's also an area that I probably should have pointed out. To that direction, you can't miss the building. So that direction, you go over there, there's a couple little islands over there. It's a good place to raft off. And so if you're up in that way and you want to go drop an anchor, that's a good place to go. Thank you for the question. Anything else before we move on? How are we doing? We doing okay? I've only seen 3 or 4 people sleep, so that's not bad, really. My average is usually 10, 20%. And this, you know, so this is a good group. You guys got good sleep last night. This whole area from about here in, it probably should be no wake. There's a floating sign in here. This is a buoy, just a marker buoy so that you stay on the outside of it to get back here. But certainly by the time you get to this point, you definitely need to be no wake because you're within 300 feet of a commercial dock. But we typically, all of us, know wake from about here in. You'll see a sign to that effect. Okay, now, don't comment on my attempt to draw a line on this slide, but some boaters, that's a pretty straight line for most boaters. Okay, so this is the overhead view of Sequoia, and this is the restaurant and the gas dock. That is about 150 feet long. So if we want to be 300 feet from a commercial property, we need to be 150, approximately 300 feet all the way down through here. Now, that's the law. We're good Tellico buddies here. It's only about a 6 to 7 minute trip if you decide to go no wake through the whole area. And I hope that nobody here is in such a hurry that in retirement or on a casual day off that they can't afford extra 6 or 7 minutes. Because what happens is when you go through that, creating a wake, even if it's out here, if you're trying to either gas your boat or dock your boat, it adds significantly to the challenge. So my encouragement is when you get to that area, it's the only really exposed marina where people can run wide open or plow across anywhere they want. But by law, you have to be at least, 300 feet out. And that's approximately what you would be doing. And you'd be pretty darn close to the shore over here. Another commercial message, thank you. See how nice that dock is at the Fort Loudon Historical Site? And that was before they put in the kayak launches. Okay, let's go up the lower Tellico River. So we've been on the Little Tennessee River up until now. We're going to veer off and we're going to go past the Sequoia Marina and we're going to run up the Tellico River a little ways. So here's we're coming under the 360 bridge right here. So the marina that we just passed, no wake, by the way, we came up here and we're headed up the Tellico River. This is the Sequoia Birthplace Museum, and Sequoia was the Cherokee who created the written record of the Cherokee language. And I think technically maybe it was the alphabet, their alphabet, but effectively it allowed the Cherokee to communicate in writing. And it is it's an excellent museum. It's well done. They've spent a lot of money on it in the last few years. Again, well worth an afternoon. There is a dock right there. And one of my favorite places is the tunnel. And we'll talk about that in a minute. The Tellico River is still running up through here. This is Kahiti right in here. And let's see, and then up here in Notchie Creek, we'll talk about it a little more, is our Razor's Landing and then the Notchie Creek campground. So this is, the snail darters stay down they were down in the dam, they roamed in the dam. This is where Jim Riley roams, right in this area. I live in Kahiti. So this is a narrower, smaller body of water. It is much more natural and rustic, if you will, than this end of the lake. There's hardly, other than Kahiti, there's really no significant development up and through here. So we've come by the Sequoia Marina, we've come under the bridge, and we have some green buoys that keep us to the left or to the right side of what we call, this is also another heron island, blue heron island, because the herons and the cormorants nest there. This is Kahiti, and this is the Sequoia Museum. It can be accessed from the here or here. Now, all of this area here in the summertime is just fine. And this is 4 Mile Creek, which is where the Kahiti boat docks are back up in this way. And again, it is fine summer and winter as long as you stay in the center. Here's a picture of the docks, pretty decent docks at the Sequoia Birthplace Museum. And here is a picture of the tunnel. And there's more jumping. That's a flying hazard there. That is not as unusual as it may seem. He finished that in a nice cannonball, by the way. And he was offered to do it again if I wanted to get another picture of it. What I want to tell you about the tunnel is it's kind of a unique thing. I just, in all the lake work I've done, I haven't been through anything too much like this. It's 14 feet wide, it's 14 feet tall. There's, summertime 8 or 9 feet below you in water, and wintertime 5 or 6 feet. It's fun to go through. It's no big deal. It's safe as anything, but I do recommend, especially because of this, that you give a toot to your horn once or twice. Just let them know you're coming, because that could be tough on everybody if one of those kids landed in your boat. And then also, as you might guess, it's a one-way. You got to yield. It's a one-way ticket. Talked a little bit about the shallows in here. Nothing serious. In the wintertime, you might want to pay attention. Let's then run ourselves up through here, and we are going to. This again is all part of Kahiti, and then this is Nachi Creek here. And there's two areas in Nachi Creek I really want to talk to you about, and I'm going to go to the next slide to do that. This is Razor's Landing, and then this is the campground. And this is a separate tributary to the Tellico River. So you're going up literally a creek, or which was a creek, and so this is an overhead view of Nachi Creek. And this is another one of those hazards that we didn't talk about 2 years ago. Right here, and again, pardon my inability to get a really perfect dot there, but there is a red buoy there. And if you cut to I guess if we were going upriver, returning from the river, or returning from the ocean, we'd be going to our right. So if you cut between the shoreline and that red buoy in the wintertime, you're going to be in about 6 inches of water. And the way we found this is we had a T-Bart call to go help that person. Unfortunately, we can't help somebody that's grounded because we don't have the right equipment to get them ungrounded. So all we could do was rescue the individual, leave the boat there, and call Towboat US. So we've added that to our hazards. And then at the end of Nachi Creek, it really looks pretty, but it drops off pretty quick. So the way we spend a lot of time up there. There's a white house with there's a white church and a house with green roof. If you see those on your right side as you're going up, slow down and prepare to turn around because it starts getting slow or get very shallow. By the way, if you haven't invested in a depth finder, go ahead and do that, but remember one thing. A depth finder tells you where you've been. They're not out in front, so just remember that. Yeah, if it goes off, gentleman up here, Glenn said if it goes off, it's too late. But it gives you an idea. What it does is allow you to start seeing a reduction in water. So, okay, so we've gone back to the Tellico River, and we're going up. This is Nachi Creek. No, I'm sorry. I've got myself a little confused here. Okay, this is ball play. I'm sorry. This is the ball play. This is Tellico River. This is the originating Tellico River here, and we'll talk about it. And then this is what's called the ball play bridge, and I don't have a picture of it, but they do jump there too. So. And it is a nice sized bridge. You can go under it and raft off and just sit out here. It's a very pretty area. So this is all really rustic and very natural in through here. Very narrow, tend to be very narrow. It's for us. It's a wonderful place to water ski. But so I shouldn't really. The rest of you aren't welcome. Thank you. Sorry. Okay. So as you're going up Tellico River, there'll be a last marker here, and that indicates that this, from here on out, is the Tellico River, but you are truly taking your boat at your own risk in there, and I'll explain it in a minute. To the other side of it, or to the left of that, takes you to the ball play area that I talked about. In this area, it gets very narrow, it gets very stumpy. I went on an 8-mile kayak trip up there, and I have a Hobie kayak which has the paddles. I even bent those. I hit a stump up there with a kayak. So that tells you how bad it is up in that area. This is the overhead view. So there's the bridge that I was pointing out. This is the area I said you could go in and raft off and sit, and there's a beautiful mountain view here. And this then is the Tellico River, you know, and it's truly full of stumps and trees. And I know people go up there, and if I had a jet ski, I might do that, but I'm not going up there with my inboard. This is it doesn't look like it, but this is the same area, summer, winter. And I didn't even catch all the big stuff. Here's the ball play bridge. Go right under that. Plenty of clearance if you're, you know, this size boat. Go right under it. There's the raft off party animals. Those folks look pretty. They look pretty good there. They don't seem to cause any trouble. Okay, I want to go back now to the Little Tennessee River, and we're getting close to the end of our journey. So if that's encouraging, or if anybody wants to hoot and holler, fine. But we're getting close. We have passed by the Fort Loudon State Park. We have passed by where Tokwa Campground is, and we're getting up into what's called Bacon Bend, as in pork belly bend, bacon bend. And this is an area that has the Tanasi Memorial and the Chota Memorial. These are two places that are considered the kind of the birthplace, and I call it the hometown of the Cherokee Nation, the Tennessee. This area is Cherokee Nation, and both Tanasi and Chota, they're underwater now, and there were some bodies that had to be moved, but they did put together a memorial for both of the two communities, and they're both accessed by the road only. If you try to get to them, try to get to them by boat, you'll probably be walking home on the road because they get very shallow, and the only way to get to them safely is by land. And you can look that up. The hazards, besides all of this being very shallow in here, basically from here on up are that we get very narrow channels. Now, I'm not discouraging you going up there because our first time up there, our daughter was skiing about in here. And we were just enjoying the scenery. She was skiing well, and we looked up, and here's an eagle that had come down. She's too big for him to get, but she came down and literally flew alongside of us. It looked like he was pacing us for at least a few hundred yards. And that was the coolest thing. And of course, you know, you wanted a picture of her and the eagle, but it didn't happen. And the other thing about being up here is the water temperature, as you get closer and closer to the Chilhowie Dam, gets cooler and cooler and cooler. And on a hot summer day, if you really want to cool off, go up there, drop in, and cool off, then come back down. But we did, so that was my daughter. When it was my son-in-law's turn, I knew about the water drop, but I didn't tell him. So he picked up the skiing about in here, and we skied all the way up through here, and I dropped him off, and we had a talk later in the day, and we're still good friends, but he was not a happy guy when he dropped back in the water, because I want to say it dropped to about 65 degrees, as I recall. So that's what we do for fun. So, so this is the wildlife area. Again, you're going to see a lot of osprey. You're going to see a lot of birds. Beautiful area to visit. Pay very close attention to the markers, and you can see that the channel stays very close to the left side or the port side of the body of water. These are the two memorials. You're going to miss it, but I'm going to add, I got a good picture from the land of the memorials, of the Chota Memorial, the one on the right, I want to add. But it just shows, I think it's 7 or 8 different tribes of the Cherokee. So this is the buoy count, if you will. Pay attention, especially in this area. I mean, that shows it about as good as I can show it. Unfortunately, one of my first tows was also in this area where it literally had a brand new, one of these high-priced wakeboard boats, hard aground right in here. Made me sick, but, you know, there wasn't much we could do. What was funny about that little aside, it was a young man and a young lady, very attractive couple, of course, as all young people seem to be, you know. And we get the guy was out, and he was pulling and pushing and everything, and he said, "Would you get?" And I'll call her Sue. "Would you get Sue in the boat with you?" So we picked her up, and we're talking to Sue, and he's pushing, and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do. And come to find out, it was their first date. That's one of the few calls I wanted to actually call back and say, "So how are you folks doing?" You know. Okay, so we're coming around a bend. We're headed up towards the dam. Again, just be careful. I encourage you to go try it and do it, but you don't have to do it fast. Slow is fun. And this then is points of interest as we get further up here. This is the map of that area that we just finished looking at. There is a ramp here, and there's a ramp there. Forget all about that ramp, folks. Just don't worry about that ramp. This is where the Harley-Davidson, the Dragon Harley-Davidson is. That's the beginning of the tail of the dragon that you've all heard about. And this is the Chilhowie Dam, the abandoned Babcock Railroad trestle. This was built in, I want to say 1918, by the Babcock Lumber Company out of Maryville. And this was a siding where they backed up cars and then loaded them with lumber, or it'd be logs, and took them to Maryville to be cut up into lumber. And it's an abandoned trestle. They left all the rock trussels there, and the rest of it's gone. But it's usually got osprey nests in it, and it's pretty interesting. From there on, though, from that point on, I want to encourage you to, if you want to go, be cautious. If you have an outboard or a stern drive, trim it up as best you can, and don't go much past about here. Now, if you got a personal watercraft, you probably can get by with doing that, but I wouldn't recommend it. I've been to about here in my inboard, and it was a pucker factor all the way. And I wouldn't have done it if I didn't teach this course. So all of that is shallows, large rocks, but you know, it's a pretty area, but it's probably not worth the risk. This is what it looks like. The trestle's back up in here. This is where I told you to probably be stopping in this area somewhere, and there's the dam. There's a water view of the trestle. That's all that's left. This is what it looks like from the shoreline. There's the Harley-Davidson, and there's a picture of the dam. The guy that got that picture used to teach this, and he has a PWC. He has a jet ski, so he didn't do it from his boat. There's a summer view of the Chilhowie Dam. There's the winter view of the Chilhowie Dam. So it gets shallow. But the fun part about that is the wildlife, the scenery's good, not here, but that whole journey past Bacon Bend, you've got wildlife, you've got, the water is clearer because it's rock bottom, not mud bottom. It is cooler, it's just a fun area, but just go cautiously. Always be careful. I'm about to wrap it up, folks, so you can start breathing again. Always be careful when operating around marinas, under narrow bridges, in shallow areas. Make sure you know the water before you go into the water, both in your boat and obviously in swimming. Expect shallow water on the outside of any turns and on the wrong side of buoys. Just kind of expect it, and if you want to go out there, it's okay. We don't stay, I got to tell you, I boat 3 to 4 times a week. We're out 3 or 4 times a week at least in the ski boat, and then we're in T-Bart boats, and I don't stay in the buoys, but I know pretty much what I'm doing, and I've learned it. So learn it yourself, and you don't have to be restricted, but you just want to know what you're getting yourself into. Watch for floating debris. That's probably the one thing I would say about this lake that surprised me. In the spring especially, but even throughout the summer, there's a little more floating debris than I would have expected for some reason, and it just boils down to this. We got lots of tributaries with undeveloped areas above us. So trees fall, and they get in the, and that's what happens. So it's not trash, but it's natural debris, and you just want to watch for it because that'll knock a prop off or bend a prop just as quick as anything else. Check your Tellico chart. Depths are listed, but remember all those charts for summertime and wintertime like now, it's at least 5 feet, probably 5.5 feet lower right now. Questions? Anybody? Way in the back. Question is, what is the protocol for riding a wave runner in a cove with homes and docks, correct? Is that the question? The protocol for PWC is the same as protocol for a boat. We ask for a 100-foot no-wake area around any dock. That's courtesy. That's not a law, but courtesy is typically around a residential dock is 100 feet no wake. As somebody that's on the water a lot and skiing around where PWC's been, they throw a pretty big wake, believe it or not. So just be careful of that. You don't have to, the protocol is exactly the same for a PWC or a boat. If it's no wake, it's no wake. If it's courtesy no wake, we ask you to be 100 feet or, no wake. Thank you. Right here. Oh. Okay, so the question is that I failed to tell you where the cattle might be. I've told you where the snail darter roams. I told you where I roam. The cattle roam on a lot of the creeks that the smaller creeks. So, and again, I'm not positive I know, but a lot of these creeks on the other side of 72, there are cattle farms, livestock farms, and a lot of those creeks begin on those farms. That area that I told you about between the two bridges with the silo at Von Orr, that area the cattle have access to the lake there too. But and again, we make a little joke of that, but really, unless you go way back in one of these, actually you probably will never get there with a boat. That's what we're talking about. But the large dairy farm that's over here on 72, many of their pastures drain into our lake. I mean, that's just agriculture. It's just the way it is. But no, we don't. I mean, it's not really an issue. But it's you got to be aware of it. Behind you. I just got stumped. The question is it true in a clear creek area, are there underwater springs, freshwater springs, and are there springs throughout the lake? I don't know, but I couldn't believe that in this kind of topography, in this kind of area, we wouldn't have some springs. But I don't know of that. I don't have any knowledge of it. Does anybody else know that for a fact? Sorry, we can't help you. Okay. Okay, the gentleman bailed me out. Thank you. I owe you. On a previous map, there are a number of springs marked, but on this current map that we're all using, we don't know where they are. Thank you. Right here. The question is, would water be able to tell us where the springs are? I can't speak for them, but I doubt it. There'd be no way of knowing now unless we had a topo map or a geological map, and none of us have those. Anybody? Yes, sir. Yes. Right. Yeah. Okay. Yep. The gentleman here is advising those of us that are new on the water and those of us that aren't new on the water to be careful of, he said, large yachts, that they do throw a very large wake. I will say the wakeboard boats and the surf boats will throw an equally large, if not stronger, wake because they're designed to throw those wakes, and they are come stronger. So both, if you see what, I think probably you all recognize a wakeboard boat or a wake or surf boat or a yacht, I would say be well aware of the wakes. And remember, those things go until they hit shore. So, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, yes, sir.
You go out to Canassie past the silo,
Yes?
which way is upriver?
Okay. Question is, if you go out of Tenassie towards the silos, if you turn right, you are going upriver. You turn left, you're going downriver. Downriver is north. Hard to say this. Upriver is south. Because our water is coming out of mountains for this lake. The Chilhowie Dam backs up to a lake that is a mountain lake, and above it's another mountain lake. And the Tellico River, which is much smaller, but the water, how many of you been to Bald River Falls? Okay, if you've been to Bald River Falls, you saw water that ended up in Tellico Lake. That's the same river. Questions? Others? Yes?
Last year, there was a report of a cable out in the water. Was that completely loose, or was that attached to something? How was that resolved?
That's one of the issues. Okay, I'm sorry. The question was, last year there was a report of a cable out in the water. I believe, and again, I may get some corrections back here on my T-Bart crew, but it's my understanding that that was part of that railroad crossing that I should talk to you about. It was in that area, and it's gotten removed. It's gone. But that area that's troublesome to the east side of between the bridges, it was in that area. Other things? Well, one final thought. I think we want to thank you, of course, as T-Barters, we want to thank you. And I just want to remind you, we're a 501c3 corporation. We work as volunteers. We are always looking for new volunteers. I think Bob said it very well. I'd like to say it again. We survive on donations from local businesses and families. When we tow you, wait a minute, if we tow you, and just looking at this crowd, I think you'll put us out of business. You guys surely aren't going to have any trouble out there. But if we tow you, we'll ask you if you'd like to make a donation, but if you choose not to, it is not. We appreciate donations, and that's how we operate. Between insurance and 3 boats and gasoline and maintenance, it's not cheap to keep the organization, but it's a 22-year-old organization, so we're hoping to keep it at least another 22. We appreciate your attendance and support. Appreciate you coming. Thank you. We hope you found this useful and entertaining. Stop by. We got maps. If you want to join T-Bart, we'd love to talk to you. We got Coast Guard here. Please stop by and say hello. But remember, everybody, safe boating. Thanks, everybody.